So I've been riding the ICAN G25 650B gravel wheels for a few thousand Ks now. If I'm ever taking the gravel bike off-road onto more adventurous terrain, I put those on and they've been an absolute blast to ride. I've paired them with a set of Panaracer Gravel King SK and run them at around 22 to 25 PSI. I have everything set up perfectly on these wheels to switch between these and my 700C Zip 303 Firecrest without having to make any adjustments whatsoever. A few weeks back, when switching these wheels over, I spun the front wheel in my hand and it didn't quite feel right. It wasn't rolling as smoothly as I expected it to. The wheel was turning fine, but the bearings were, well, not as they should be. The bearings on the G25 wheels aren't covered under warranty. I did still, however, reach out to ICAN support to see if they had any recommendations for swapping the bearings out for something a little smoother. Swapping out cartridge bearings on these wheels isn't exactly something that the end user is expected to do, so their reply erred on the side of caution, requesting that I take the wheel to the professionals at a local bike store. I respect that reply from a business perspective, but as a male with slightly more confidence than ability, it was my task to at least try to attempt to do this myself. And for a huge investment of only $6.60 in pretty cheap bearings, I got the job done. Let's see how it unfolded. Okay, first things first, we'll do a sound test on the bearing and you can hear it grinding away. And when I try and turn it very slowly, it grabs and it's very notchy. Now compare that to the Zip 303 Firecrest, which is silent when I move the bearing, like so, or close enough to silent. And when I move it very slowly, it's silky smooth. So that's what I expect from the ICAN wheel as well. Alrighty, with the end caps removed and the disc rotor removed from the wheel, I'll take you through the other tools that I have on hand to get the job done. We have some multi-purpose grease, a rag, a standard hammer, soft blow hammer. I'll be using the Lifeline press fit bottom bracket install tool as my bearing press. I'll be using a 21mm socket as my bearing drift. I have a end cap from a garden hose fitting for the other side as I'll be pressing this in. I have some other little tools there to knock the bearings out. I have 2 pieces of wood and I have my $3.30 bearings times 2. Let's see if this will all work. The bearings themselves are 6902, which is the type of bearing. 2RS, I believe, is for the rubber shielding on both sides. These are branded NBK. This is what comes with the wheels and what has failed me. Now, a closer look at the bearing drift that I'll be using, which is just simply a 21mm socket or a 20mm socket, I can't recall, but the outer diameter is what it's all about. The 6902 has an outer diameter of 28mm, and this socket has an outer diameter of 27.87, give or take. So it is perfect for this task. As you can see here, when I sit it on top of the bearing, it's just a little bit skinnier and only touches the outer race. Now typically I speed these parts of the video up, or sections of. However, the Giro doesn't start for another hour or so on television, so you're going to have to sit here listening to me talk you through what I got up to here in the garage yesterday. Starting off with knocking out the first bearing, which is always a little tricky when the first blow doesn't do much at all. Second one did. Third did again. And just to check that, we have movement at the station. Things are slowly coming out. Just realigning that. Small little taps, not much force at all required on those last few, and the axle and bearing slide straight out. Oh, and that is the Australian wildlife in the background that you will be hearing, including my son in a few minutes' time. So there's the axle. It's symmetrical, so we don't have to worry about which way it goes. That bearing feels okay. Wasn't gritty or grindy. So I can't quite put my finger on exactly where the issue is coming from, but I'm guessing it's the other bearing, which we will knock out with these little socket extenders, which maybe aren't the best tool for the job, but it's the best tool I had, which becomes the best tool for the job. And with a few small straight blows, the other bearing pops straight out and onto the ground. Easy as that. A quick inspection of the hub. The disc side looks pristine. And the non-disc side is also in A1 condition for the installation of these new bearings. Now, speaking of, here are the NBKs, and here are the super cheap new bearings, the unbrandeds. Small amount of grease for the bearing to slide in easily. Hello, Maxwell. He sounds like he's having a lot of fun in the other room. Okay, now to put my homemade bearing press to the test. Well, it's technically not homemade. This is a bottom bracket bearing press, but the axle that goes through is small enough to fit through and mounts my bearing drift that I've selected today. Okay, it looks like it's going to do the job that side. On with the garden hose attachment and the other wing. And making sure that socket or bearing drift is lined up perfectly with the outer race. I'll slowly screw this in. Backing that off to make sure it is absolutely in the center. I can feel the bearing slowly squeezing in. And you can really feel it tighten up when it sits in the final resting place right there. It's not going to go any further. It's really obvious when it is in place. One down, and feeling nice and smooth, all looking good. Pretty happy with the results so far. Definitely not grabbing, and it's quiet. Closer inspection. I'm pretty chuffed, to be honest. But that's only half the task and the easy part. Now here's a test to see if the bearing is lined up correctly. I'll put the axle through. And if the axle sits straight, then we know the bearing is straight. And that's looking pretty good to me. Again, turning okay, not gripping. Double checking everything because this is the first time I've done something like this, and yep, again, still happy with everything. So it's time to put the other bearing in and see if we can complete the task without screwing anything up. Same process, bearing slides over, keeping it nice and straight. And on with my bearing press tool. Now there are specialty bearing press tools you can buy for hubs, wheels manufacturing. Lifeline have them too, I believe, on Wiggle. But this seems to do the job. Again, lining everything up, making sure that drift isn't going to press into the hub. And I found turning the other side allow me to be a little bit more accurate with the centering of the drift. You can hear it just working its way in. Okay, one last little tighten up, and we're done. That is it. Bearings are in. Axle's in. I was a bit nervous at this point that it was going to be grindy, and we have a winner. Silky smooth. Nice and quiet. And someone called an ambulance in the background there. Sound test, no sound. Turn test, nice and smooth. Excellent. Okay, a little bit more grease on the end caps. In they go, both sides. Centerlock rotors, I love them. Super easy. There we go. Still quiet, still smooth. And for $6, these bearings are going very, very well. Now, these may not be the final form that I end up with these super cheap bearings, so I'm not advocating spending next to no money on crappy quality bearings, but these were better than what I started with. The ultimate test, though, is to put the axle in and... oh. Night and day difference from when I started this morning. Job done. With a little bit of elbow grease, a little bit of creativity with those tools, and $6.60, it was all smooth sailing on the front wheel again. Now, this is not something that an end user should do. I would recommend going to that local bike store or at least investing in the proper tools to do the job. I just scraped by hacking what I had together to get the task at hand completed. Now, why only one of these bearings went bad? I don't know, but given I've knocked them out from the inner race, they're both considered bad bearings for now. Anyhow, now I know the process, now I'm confident that I can get it done. Might be time to invest in some quality bearings for some longer rides on those wheels. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe to support this channel. There's also a thanks button down there somewhere as well that no one's clicked on just yet and over 300,000 views. So investigate that and we'll see you soon.